Welcome to the Abundant Accountant Podcast. This is where accounting professionals just like you come to learn all the most efficient, powerful, abundant ways to grow their firm, sharpen their sales skills, and have consistent, increasing revenue year over year. I cover topics from pricing, sales, networking, objections, ideal clients, some marketing ideas, and really about how to increase your cash flow and profitability and set boundaries so you have the firm that you've always dreamt of. You're no longer giving away your time for free. You're no longer putting yourself on sale, and you are being paid for the value and worth that clients actually appreciate you for. So you'll learn tips and strategies as well as hear personal interviews from successful accounting professionals. This podcast will show you exactly how to create the firm of your dreams and the life full of abundance. Welcome to the Abundant Accountant Podcast. Today, we have a very special guest, that has been a veteran here at the Abundant Accountant Podcast. But I really want to share some exciting news that you might have heard, that I have a new app available to all of you for those that just absolutely hate the sales process and want a done-for-you solution. So this is a solution in the palm of your hands that will help you manage your leads, figure out what to send them, videos, document checklists, questionnaires, and a series of 24 emails to follow along with them for almost 2 years if they don't become a client right away. So if you want to convert more high-quality clients without doing any cold calling and actually have full control over your time and have a follow-up system in place and stop wasting hours in the day looking for new clients online, then I invite you to give the app a try for 2 weeks. You get a 2-week trial over at theabundantaccountant.com/app. And if you like the app, you can buy it. So for the first 2 weeks, you get to try it out for pretty much $1, I think. Yeah, $1. And then you can opt in to continue it, and you can cancel at any time if you don't like it. But I promise you're going to like it because yours truly put everything into it. So it's really cool. I have coaching videos on there. You can see everything over at theabundantaccountant.com/app. Now, let's welcome our very special guest to the show. Our special guest is Paul Ross. He's an author, speaker, trainer, master hypnotist, and he's a master of neuro-linguistic programming. Over the last 30 years, he's taught tens of thousands of people the power of language to persuade, influence, and sell, heal, and turn stumbling blocks into stepping stones. And today we're going to talk about that in a way where you can get rid of your accounts receivables. If you have AR, it can go to zero. If you send out invoices and spend a lot of your time focusing on collections, then this episode is for you. So grab your pen and paper and let's welcome Paul to the show. Welcome, Paul, to the show.
Thank you, Michelle. It's always an honor and a pleasure to speak to your audience and to you, who I admire and look up to as an absolute genius.
Well, I think you're a genius too, and this one's going to be a really great show today. So make sure to grab your pen, paper. Paul will introduce himself. He has been here on the Abundant Accountant Podcast a couple times, but today we're talking about the psychology of why getting the payments up front has your clients more committed, why getting upfront payments versus as you go, and the differences between the two. So which one is the best for you and your accounting firm? So that's what we're talking today about with Paul Ross. So Paul, before we start, can you share with everyone just 30 second to a minute of who you are?
Sure. I am an author of the book Subtle Words That Sell. I am a hypnotist, so I've taken principles from classic hypnosis and applied them to sales. And my basic principle is you're never selling your product or service. You're always selling decisions and good feelings about decisions. And decisions that are delayed are usually decisions that never get made. So remember that little rhyme.
I love that. Decisions that are not made are always delayed. Is that what you just said?
No, decisions that are delayed are seldom made.
Oh, okay. Got it. Decisions that are delayed are seldom made. Did I get it right?
That's right.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great segue into today's conversation because I speak to a lot of accountants. I know there's a lot of you here that use different software programs that send out engagement letters, proposals, which I hate the word proposals, Paul, but those two things to a client. And then there's a place and a link for them to pay. However, I have found that with that problem, right, there, when it's delayed, the decision to actually pay right away, because payment is a form of currency that commits the client to you and enrolling with your firm, it's seldom made. Or a lot of the accountants here spend a lot of time billing their clients 9 months after the work's due, 12 months after the work's due, and then they have a big accounts receivable. So button up, grab your paper, and Paul, let's hear about just the overview of the mind and how people buy from you.
Well, let me just tell you something. This reflects on a story that just occurred to me. I hadn't planned on telling it. It's completely clean and G-rated. I know this is a family show. I was hired to do a documentary, doesn't matter about what, to be the star of a documentary up in Canada. And they wanted to pay me half up front and then half when I got there. And I called my sister, who's an entertainment attorney. She said, no, Paul. Talent doesn't fly until a check is deposited in full in my trust account. Half is distributed to you now, and half you get as soon as you've completed filming. So the instant you're done and they call cut, you text me, and I'll wire the money into your account. So here's the psychology. People tend to feel about us according to the way they treat us, not the other way around. Most people think the way they treat us is based on the way they feel about us. No, the other way around. So once you allow your client to delay making that decision to pay you, they then begin to question not only their own judgment, but they begin to question whether you're of sufficient value. Because after all, you don't delay or deny or stall someone who's bringing great value to the table. So even if you initially convince them that, yes, hiring you is the best possible decision, and by the way, you're never selling your product or service. You're always selling decisions and good feelings about decisions. Even if you had that initial discussion and they initially think, yeah, this is a good idea, if you allow them to delay payment, then they're going to begin to question their own judgment. And then they're going to begin to question whether you are someone who they really want to fully commit to. And the little thing here, and I don't want to talk too much, so make sure that you step in as you see fit.
I always will.
Remember, you're selling decisions and good feelings about decisions. And here's a key. Nowadays, people don't trust their ability to make a good decision, especially when it involves laying out what could be seen as a substantial sum of money. So because they have to know, like, and trust you, that's true. But the missing piece of the equation that I have seen into is they have to be able to trust their own decisions. And if you let them delay, if you let them pay over time, they're going to begin to doubt that decision. Does that make sense? And then you'll wind up doing all this work prior to being paid in full. And also, when you let people pay over time, yeah, sure, you may have a contract, but the expense of actually going to enforce it with an attorney is more expensive than what the contract is actually worth. I've seen this happen with clients that I always want to get paid up front, because that way the client's going to value me more, but then the client can't. Oh, my spouse doesn't think this is a good idea. Hey, I'm sorry, I got hit with a sudden bill. No. You collect up front. And one of the things I may want to talk about, I'll let you approve it or not, is what's the mindset that keeps accountants away from believing they can ask for the payment up front.
Well, and that's what I want to segue into, are, for someone who bills after the work's done 6 to 9 months later, or, pay as they go, or for someone who meets with a client and then takes the passive approach, which I call it, where you send the engagement letter or proposal along with the link to pay, and just wait and hope that they click the link and actually move through, which then you have lost sales, missed opportunities, because there's not a really good follow-up system in place, is probably my guess. We have all of these challenges ahead of us. And then you have the mindset piece where if I ask for payment up front, Michelle, isn't that a little aggressive? That seems a little bit like pushy and like that I'm maybe desperate. And in my mind, obviously it's not. But I want to hear from you, Paul. How can we help accountants listening today going into summer of 2021, where the extended tax season was a nightmare for everybody? They're overwhelmed, probably want to lay on the couch, kick their feet up with Netflix, and now we're going into the back half of the year. How do we make these changes in the firms to get paid up front or before the work's due, or get half up front and half before you deliver the final piece, just like you did with your thing in Canada? What would you say is that first thing that needs to happen, especially around the mindset?
I love teaching this because mindset applies across all industries, across any form of selling. I actually just trained a call center in the Philippines, of all things, because it doesn't matter what industry you're in. First and foremost, you have to believe that it's possible for you to do it. I didn't say you have to believe that you can do it. That comes later. You have to at least accept the possibility that you can do it. So that's first and foremost, possibility. When you go to change your structure beliefs, the first thing you go after is possibility and skill set, not identity. So if you say, I am a quick closer, or I am someone who closes my clients right away, the challenge is on the unconscious level. Your unconscious mind may say, no, you can't, because you have all these examples of not having done it. So we want to open to the possibility that we could do it. Does that make sense?
Makes sense. So
second thing, the second thing is to get into your head that you're actually deserving, that you deserve to get this payment up front. I wouldn't even look at it as a payment up front. I would look at it as an opportunity to invest in their success. You're extending an opportunity, the optimum opportunity for them to immediately invest in their success. So look at it not as an attempt to close a deal, but an opportunity extension. You're extending this opportunity for them immediately to make the decision that serves them best. If I teach a call center, I don't want to get off topic because this is about accountants, but people have trouble with cold calling. I say, no, you're not cold calling. You're extending an opportunity. So when you collect that payment up front, you're actually extending an opportunity for that client to commit. And that's a really powerful, important thing. You're actually being of service, which leads to my third thing is you have to believe you deserve it. So here's my simple little thing I like to teach my clients is write down the word deserve, DESERVE, and cross out the words DE. And what do you get?
Serve.
Exactly. What you deserve is greater or equal to the amount to which you serve. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so when you get that this is really being of service, that will create the belief that you deserve to do it. So there's possibility. You have to open to the possibility that it can be done. And you have to open up to the possibility or the mindset that you are actually deserving of doing it because you're extending a gift. Does that make sense?
Yes,
you're not trying to get something. You're extending an opportunity for that person to be more successful. Because when they have skin in the game, they're going to follow through. If they don't have skin in the game, they're going to look. I look up to you massively because you have a massive commitment to your success, Michelle. You're deeply invested in serving your community of accountants, and you have skin in the game. Not just because you're a businesswoman, but because you want to see the people you serve succeed.
I want to see you all succeed, have more money in the bank so you can kick your feet up and watch Netflix and not have that pressure and overwhelm of the cash flow challenges that, the roller coaster cash flow ride and, the upfront payment versus the pay as you go or, hey, pay me 9 months, 12 months later because you have to now get a collection company to help you is also why having someone pay on the first meeting with them or, if you're just doing compliance work, those are really easy. But if you're doing the higher value work, you're doing the consulting work, you're doing CFO services, tax planning, tax resolution, the commitment is with the actual money. And Paul, I don't know if you can speak on that, but I've been told a lot. Oh, okay, Michelle, yeah, I'm going to call you back, or yeah, let's do a follow-up in 2 weeks. And I already know that 90% of the time, those aren't ever going to happen. I know that. And it's just an easy way for a client to say no, even because they don't want to hurt your feelings. So can you share?
Or can I just say one thing? Forgive me for interrupting, Michelle. Or they're just not clear on what you're proposing or what they want to do, and therefore they don't want to appear to look stupid. It could be not that they're not interested, is they're not clear, and they don't want to look stupid. They don't assume that your client or your prospective client is going to tell you the real objection, because number one, they may not know, but number two, even if they do know, they may be fearful that they're going to sound stupid or that they're going to sound flaky. And so you have to have a technique to ferret out what the real objection is. And it's seldom about money. That's almost always a smokescreen. If it is about money, then great. You've saved yourself time. I think it's Chris Voss, who you turned me on to. Thank you. I think he said, I'm mangling what he said. So Chris, if you're listening, my apologies. But he said, it's not a sin to lose a deal. No. It's a sin to put in a tremendous amount of time and effort
in a bad deal,
and going into a bad deal and losing a bad deal. So along those lines, I think when people say, well, can I think it over, or sure, get back to me a proposal, or that sort of thing, I always like to say something along the lines of, well, I understand. Can I ask you a question? Have you ever taken a long time to think something over and it still turned out to be a bad decision? So maybe it's not about time, but about the clarity you need to recognize this really is the best path to move forward. So thinking about it like that, is there anything we can address right now? Yeah. And when you speak that way, you're taking what they think would be a good idea, which is delaying, and you're subconsciously, not consciously, because I'm a hypnotist, you're subconsciously switching the frame to be, oh, if I delay, I'm actually going to lose. Now, some people may say that's manipulative, Paul. And I would say, well, it's being clever and crafty in the service of a decision that is optimum for your client as well as for you.
Yeah. And I think if we stand with the premise, and we've spoke about this a lot of times on past episodes, that the sales process is basically taking a prospect down a path to ultimately make a decision that they feel good about. It's all about good feelings, about decisions that they get to make. We're just guiding them down that path. So if we guide them down the path and encourage, oh yeah, pay me later, or oh, I'll send you a proposal with an engagement letter and there's a link to pay, so whenever you feel like it, we're actually not helping them make a good decision, and we're providing more opportunity for delay. So we're actually hindering the service that we all provide.
And that's all true. And Michelle, here's the rub on another level. You're positioning yourself as just another person who's desperate for business. It's bad positioning. It's really bad positioning. It's like if someone, again, I apologize if this is off topic. It's like if someone cancels a date on you and you say, sure, I understand. And then they cancel another one and another one. Your value in their eyes is dropping tremendously. It's not speaking to the world and saying, I am of worth, I am of value. I don't need to put up with this sort of thing. So here's the thing also. The more you set up with your action and behavior, the more you do get the money up front. It sets up a beautiful feed forward loop. The more you'll come into it radiating that belief that you deserve it. And the more you come into each transaction radiating that belief that you deserve it, the more likely it is that they'll pay you up front. And it creates this beautiful, what we call in hypnosis, a feed forward loop. So your belief feeds your action feeds your belief feeds your action, and it creates not a vicious cycle, but a virtuous cycle, a cycle that actually creates a victorious cycle. So this is what I know deep in my deep understanding of how the subconscious or unconscious, it's the same thing, as a hypnotist, I know the unconscious mind is impressed by action. So when you take that action, you believe you deserve it. When you believe you deserve it, the person on the other end of the negotiation is far more likely to go along with you.
Small steps of action to make these shifts. And I have a question, because I think for everyone listening and myself, I always love to hear your actionable examples. So these are some things that you can say when you're meeting with clients as you're working on making this transition. So Paul already gave us one, which is, have you ever taken a long time to make a decision before? And just being really curious when you ask it. What other great questions could you ask? You're at the end of a meeting with a new prospect. They're ready to move forward. For everyone listening, I want you to practice just, running their card, having them fill out an ACH direct withdraw form right then and there, and then have them sign the engagement letter either on paper or through DocuSign or through any of your tax software proposal programs, but only after you have transacted the payment. And I know there's workarounds because all of my students have figured it out. So if you're using, oh gosh, I don't even know all the terms or all the softwares out there, but if you're using any of them, they all have a workaround where you can get the payment filled in for them, and it would send them an email with the link, but all the payment stuff's filled in, and all they have to do is electronically sign their engagement letter. So in the moment with the client, Paul, what are some other questions that an accountant could ask to really, speed up the decision process right then and there if they're not going to give payment? Or, obviously step one is start asking for payment, but step two is also ask really great questions in order to figure out, are there any other hidden objections? Because if we delay and we allow that to happen, not only are we hurting our clients, but there's other objections underneath the surface. And the only way to bring them up above the surface is to address them right when you're with the client and remove the back and forth.
Yeah. Well, here's what I don't suggest. I don't suggest you say, well, are there any other reasons why you can't move forward today?
Yeah, that's horrible. Yeah.
That's horrible, but because it's just going to cause them to go inside and come up with reasons why they don't want to do it. I would use what we call in NLP I don't want to give the technical term. It's called the conditional. So if I said, well, I understand, and not but, Michelle, I understand, and that's a magical word, and, because it gives you the opportunity to acknowledge what they're saying. You don't but your client. When you but your client, they feel unheard. It breaks rapport and they're gone. I understand your concern. And if you were to, is like saying, imagine you did, or imagine you could. If you were to just go inside for a moment and allow yourself to feel free to speak on what else might be there that would allow you to move forward, what would that be? So let me unpack it. That's a big mouthful. Let me unpack it. I understand. And if you were to, that's equivalent to me as a hypnotist saying, go deep into your unconscious and find out what's really going on. If you were to stop, take a minute and discover for yourself what else needs to be cleared up for you to decide you want to move forward today. This is very vague language. I understand it's very unusual to the accountants listening. It's in my book. I'm not trying to plug the book, but it'll show you step by step how to do this. What would those be? So what essentially we're doing is we're using a powerful phrase, if you were to. If I said, okay, Mr. Client, I understand, but I want you to tell me right now what else is going on in your mind, they're going to hang up. But when you use those magic words, if you were to, that's equivalent to me as a hypnotist. And if you're uncomfortable with that label, we're all hypnotists because we're always convincing ourselves if we can do something. That's a hypnotic thing. Yeah. If you were to is equivalent to saying, stop a minute, take a breath and relax, dive down and feel comfortable searching your mind for what else has to be cleared up. without asking it directly, you imply that they are interested and eager and capable of doing that. Now, I know this is the kind of thing that will have to be listened to multiple times. I do encourage people to listen to this episode multiple times. I know Michelle thinks I get too technical at times, and I understand. We try to keep it simple.
I like real life examples for everyone listening to make this shift.
I've had this example. I had I still kick myself. This guy ran a gigantic mortgage company, number 2 in the whole country, that was not otherwise run by a bank. I got an introduction to him through someone we both knew. I had like 4 or 5 conversations with him, and he was sold and excited. He was the CEO of the company, mind you. He said, "This sounds great. Let me present it at the next board meeting. I'll get back to you." Now, I should have known, look, if he's the CEO of the whole company.
Isn't he the decision maker?
Of course he's the decision maker. I'm sorry, Michelle. I should not have raised my voice. I apologize to you and the listeners. Of course he's the decision maker. But I was so intimidated by the amount of money that he tentatively had said, yeah, that's cool, that I didn't handle that objection. I said, sure. And then he never took my calls, and down the rabbit hole it went.
What would you say if you were to do it differently today with the CEO? Because a lot of the accountants listening, we have business owners. They probably need some high-level services done. You want to charge $5,000, $10,000, maybe $20,000, maybe even more. And you're intimidated by that. And you've seen these people's financials. You've seen their QuickBooks files. You've seen their tax returns. And they say, oh, I want to take it to my husband or wife, or I want to take it to my business partner. What would be the best question to bring up, since you're meeting with the CEO? This is the final decision maker to decide to work with you. And that's another little tip. Always have all decision makers present. What would you say using, if you were to and framework?
Well, I would use a phrase called what I call the "of course" objection destroyer. I would say, of course, it's important that the right decision be made, and that you ensure and guarantee that they're also on board with us, which implies that on board with us implies that he's already wanting to make the decision. So I'm just curious, what would have to happen for you to be able to move forward today with the clear understanding that ultimately you're the decision maker?
Yeah.
So what would have to happen for you to move forward today? What would have to happen is, again, like saying, if you were to, what would have to happen for you to decide you can move forward today, which is a suggestion. I didn't say you can move forward and sign the agreement. I said you can move forward today. I left it deliberately vague. So there's a lot of hypnotic tools that are being combined in this.
I love it.
I know it sounds complex, and again, I'm sorry if I seem like I'm plugging it. It's laid out in black and white, step by step in the book. So after, you're going to have to read it multiple times. I'm serious. It's a quick read, but it's not an easy read.
Yeah. And I think this is a prime example. So, if you caught that, you had your yellow notepad and pen, maybe just hit rewind here and write it out, because these things you need to have written out. You need to have in front of you in order to be prepared on how to handle the conversations until this becomes more intuitive. So thank you so much, Paul, for that. Is there anything else that you would like to add that maybe we haven't spoke about today on the reasons why upfront payments versus pay as you go are in the best interest for your clients? And, which is the best kind of route for an accountant, accounting firm, CPAs, solo accountingpreneurs that I call them here, in order to make this shift because money is the actual commitment. The guy told you he was sold. The CEO said, yeah, I'm sold. I got to go to the board meeting, and I'm going to guess that you never heard from him again. So when someone says, yes, I'm interested, I'm sold, I'm ready to go, it actually doesn't mean anything to me. I hear nothing. I've blurred those words out. I'm like, The only thing that means you're actually sold and want me to help you is when you pay. When you fill the ACH form out, you pay with a credit card or debit card or a check or maybe even cryptocurrency these days. So,
Michelle, I have to tell you something. I've had many great mentors in my career. And one of them, I don't know whether it was Gary Halbert or Dan Kennedy, said, stop with the compliments, hand over the check.
Yeah, it's true. The compliments are lovely, but they don't help pay your team. They don't help pay you first.
I had someone, I was at an event. He said, oh my God, I can't believe it. There's Paul Ross. He's one of my idols. And I go by another name when I teach something else. It doesn't matter. He said, or should I call you Paul or should I call you this? I said, call me whatever you want. Just sign the check.
Yeah.
So forget about how nice it feels to hear what you think is their agreement. All that matters is that they give you the payment. Otherwise, they're wasting your time, wasting your time. Look, you're here. If you're listening to Michelle's podcast, you're here to create financial independence, perhaps, or to put food on the table for your family. You're here to take the worry and the stress out of the cash flow roller coaster that occurs. And she's absolutely right about that. It also happens in a few other businesses. But I can think of no other business except for contractors get it too. Being a contractor is very seasonal. But what I'm trying to say is you really deserve and need to get these results that Michelle is teaching you to get. And I know, Michelle, you're so, as brilliant as you are, you're heart driven and you have a heart of service. So when Michelle tells you to do something, do it.
Yeah. And I think we'll just wrap it up here. What Paul is saying. You deserve it and people will pay you, but let people pay with their checkbooks. Let people pay with their ACH forms. Let people pay with their credit cards because that is the proof that you deserve it, that you're worthy of it, and that you can make this shift in your firm to get paid up front instead of the pay as you go or pay me 9 months later. And it is truly possible to see people with $40,000, $60,000, $80,000 in AR have it go to zero and change their whole business. Because I've seen it with my own students, and you can find that all at theabundantaccountant.com if you go to the success stories page. Now, Paul, you did mention your book a couple times. Can you share the name of it and where they can buy it?
Sure. It's called Subtle Words That Sell. The subtitle is How to Get Your Prospects to Convince Themselves to Buy and add top dollars to your bottom line. It is available on Amazon. At the very back of the book, I believe there's some ways you can reach out to me, give me feedback about the book. I always want to hear what my readers have to say. I answer every email myself because that's how I roll, and my ego also likes the attention.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for being here with us today on the Abundant Accountant podcast. It was an honor to have you.
Likewise, Michelle. Always an honor to speak to such a genius entrepreneur.
What an amazing show with Paul. So much goodness. You might need to rewind that one and take some notes. But I do want to share a personal story because not just like you, I deal with this on a daily basis. There are so many people that I've talked to either selling for other people or even just my own program, our 8-week sales mastery training, that say, oh, Michelle, I'm sold. I just need to talk to my husband or my wife or my significant other. Or, yeah, I've heard the word sold so many times. And this happened actually with a woman yesterday. I was selling for someone else, their program. And she said, Michelle, we'll just call her Bobby Joe. Bobby Joe said, Michelle, I am sold. This is exactly what I need. It is the right time. I'm committed. And mind you, I've spoken to Bobby Joe in 2017. It's now 2021. Bobby Joe hasn't taken action. So did I think she was going to take action now when she said she was sold? To me, it actually sounds like a red flag. And I was right. She said she would make her decision in 24 hours. So maybe I didn't serve her right and I allowed her to linger in her decision-making process. That's okay. But, I I knew what I was dealing with. And she said she's going to go a different direction. In the future, she'll reach back out if anything changes, or I will come to the well a third time, and I promise to lead with my checkbook. And that is just proof in the pudding that people will commit with their checkbooks, with their credit cards, and with their forms of payments. There's no other way of a commitment. When someone says I'm sold, it doesn't mean anything. It's not a commitment. I always said that with when I was raising money with my last company, and investors would tell me they would invest $50,000, $100,000. I never believed it unless the check cleared, and after 3 days, the money sat in the bank account. Then I would actually believe it. And people would say, Michelle, you're so skeptical. You're so, or you just don't believe that things are really going to happen. No, I do. But I also have seen the opposite. I have seen people say things because they're too scared to just tell you the truth. And that's okay too. So when you've had experience doing thousands of calls, pitching thousands of investors, what I can promise you is like what Bobby Joe said in her email to me. I promise to lead with my checkbook next time. And that's commitment. That's an enrollment, not when someone says I'm sold. So I wanted to end with that. Also, I just want to reiterate, if you are having a challenge with getting the sales process figured out on your own, I have a done-for-you solution. And you can learn more about that over at theabundantaccountant.com/app. It will 10x your sales. It is the #1 accounting sales app because I say so, and I know. This will help you create the know, like, and trust factor a lot quicker. There's a welcome video that you can send to your clients. You basically will pick what track you are so you can focus on monthly bookkeeping or accounting. There's a track for tax planning. There's a track for profit coaching, and there's a track for tax resolution. But this is what will help you establish real relationships fast using the app to convert higher paying clients. And we do this I partnered with a company called Rapid Fuel Technology. So you'll see more about that on the website, but this will help increase your value, having a bulletproof client experience that turns prospects into customers and have that cash flow flowing in your firm. So once again, to learn more, head on over to theabundantaccountant.com/app, and you can see what I've been working on the last 3 to 6 months. Thank you all so much for joining me here on another episode of the Abundant Accountant Podcast. It was an honor to be here, and I will see you in the next episode.